In the quiet, unassuming town of Villisca, Iowa, in the summer of 1912, life moved with the gentle rhythm of small-town America. The streets were lined with modest homes, children laughed freely under the warm sun, and neighbors knew each other by name. But beneath this peaceful surface, something ancient and malevolent was stirring. Something that would transform one ordinary white frame house into a gateway of unrelenting horror. The Moore family home at 508 East 2nd Street stood as a symbol of modest prosperity. Josiah Moore, a 43-year-old successful businessman and devout churchgoer, lived there with his wife Sarah, 39 years old, and their 4 young children: Herman, 11, Mary Catherine, 10, Arthur, 7, and little Paul, just 5 years old. On the evening of June 9th, the family attended a lively Children's Day program at the Presbyterian Church. 2 young sisters from the neighboring family, Lena Stillinger, 12, and Ina Stillinger, 8, were invited to spend the night. No one could have imagined that this innocent gathering would be the last time these 8 souls would ever feel safe. As dusk settled over Villisca, the family returned home, unaware that shadows longer than the night itself had already claimed their house. The killer, or killers, had most likely slipped inside while the Moores were at church. He hid in the dark, dusty attic, breathing slowly, listening to the laughter and footsteps below as the children prepared for bed. The house grew quiet around 10 p.m. One by one, the family drifted into sleep, completely oblivious to the predator waiting above them like a demon in the rafters. Then, sometime between midnight and the early hours before dawn, the nightmare descended. The killer moved with a chilling, calculated silence. He descended from the attic and first entered the master bedroom on the ground floor, where Josiah and Sarah lay sleeping peacefully. What happened in that room was nothing short of demonic fury. He raised Josiah's own axe, the one kept in the backyard, and brought it down with savage force. On Josiah, he used the sharp blade, hacking with such brutality that his eyes were completely destroyed, his face reduced to a grotesque, unrecognizable pulp. Sarah was struck repeatedly with the blunt side, her skull caving in under the merciless blows. Blood sprayed across the walls, soaked the bed sheets, and pooled on the floor. The ceiling above bore deep gouge marks from the wild upward swings of the axe. But the horror had only just begun. The killer then climbed the narrow stairs to the children's bedroom. One by one, he slaughtered the innocent Moore children in their beds. Herman, Mary Catherine, Arthur, and little Paul. None of them woke up. The blows were delivered with horrifying precision, using the blunt end of the axe. The youngest, 5-year-old Paul, was struck so violently that his small body barely moved under the covers. The sound of cracking bone and the wet thud of metal on flesh must have echoed horribly in the still night air. Downstairs in the guest room, the Stillinger sisters met the same fate. Yet here, the scene grew even more disturbing. Investigators later believed that Lena, the older sister, may have briefly awakened. She had a defensive wound on her arm, suggesting she tried to fight back in those final, terrifying seconds. Her body was found positioned strangely, and her undergarments had been disturbed, though no evidence of sexual assault was confirmed. The killer's actions here hinted at something beyond simple murder, a ritualistic cruelty that defies human understanding. Yet the true depths of this evil revealed themselves in what the killer did after the slaughter. Instead of fleeing into the night like any ordinary murderer, he remained in the blood-soaked house for hours. He returned to the master bedroom and unleashed dozens more blows upon the already dead bodies of Josiah and Sarah. Some accounts suggest Josiah was struck over 30 times. He then performed a series of bizarre, almost ceremonial acts that have haunted investigators for over a century. He carefully covered every mirror in the house with clothing and towels, perhaps to prevent the souls of the dead from seeing their killer, or to trap their spirits within the glass. He draped garments over the faces and bodies of the victims, as if granting them a final, mocking modesty. In the kitchen, he washed his bloodied hands in a basin. Most chilling of all, he helped himself to the family's food. A large slab of bacon was left leaning against the wall next to the axe, and evidence suggested he had eaten a meal before leaving.
Finally, he locked all the doors from the inside, pulled down every window shade to seal the house in darkness, and even adjusted a lamp to dim its light. Then, as silently as he had arrived, he vanished into the Iowa night, leaving the bloodied axe propped against the wall in the guest room, still dripping. The next morning, June 10th, neighbor Mary Peckham grew concerned. The Moore house was unnaturally silent. No children playing, no morning chores. The shades were drawn tight. When she and Josiah's brother Ross entered the home, the metallic stench of blood assaulted them immediately. Ross opened the guest room door and recoiled in horror. "Somebody murdered in every bed," he later told the arriving marshal. 8 bodies, 6 of them children, lay slaughtered in their beds, their heads covered, their skulls shattered beyond recognition. The entire town of Villisca plunged into a state of pure terror. How could such savagery happen in their peaceful community? Who could commit such an act and then linger to eat and stage the scene? The killer had walked among them, perhaps even attended the same church service, and disappeared without a trace. Despite a massive investigation involving hundreds of interviews, the case quickly descended into chaos. The crime scene was contaminated by curious townspeople trampling through the house. Forensic science in 1912 was primitive. Fingerprints were barely used. Several suspects emerged over the years. A traveling Presbyterian minister named George Kelly, who confessed, then recanted. A possible railroad serial killer, business rivals, even theories involving satanic rituals or multiple perpetrators. To this day, more than 114 years later, the Villisca Axe Murders remain unsolved. No one was ever convicted. The house at 508 East 2nd Street still stands, a silent witness to unimaginable evil. It has become one of America's most notoriously haunted locations. Visitors and paranormal investigators report overwhelming feelings of dread, sorrow, and rage. Footsteps echo in empty hallways. Children's laughter and crying are heard in the dead of night. The swing of an axe cutting through the air. Orbs and shadowy figures appear in photographs. Some who spend the night flee in terror before dawn, claiming an unseen presence watched them. Some believe the victims' spirits remain trapped, forever reliving that night of unspeakable horror. Others whisper that the killer himself, or the evil that possessed him, never truly left. Imagine, for a moment, lying in your bed in the dead of night. The house is quiet. Then you hear it. A faint creak from the attic. Soft footsteps descending the stairs. A shadow moving across the wall. And you realize, too late, that the monster is already inside, breathing the same air as you, waiting in the darkness. In Villisca, that nightmare was real, and the monster was never caught.